Hi Not Board Gamers and welcome back to Not Board Gaming. I'm your host, I'm Mark. Now, today's episode we're going to be looking at Solar Storm by Ayden, Lowther and Dranda Games. I will say off the bat that this is a review copy that was handed to me by the guys at Dranda Games and by Ayden. I think it came out on Kickstarter last year and backers are due to start receiving their copies sometime in June or July, and it's also going to retail as well. And I think it's going to retail for about £15 to £20 in retail. Now, Solar Storm is a small box, as you can see. It's a perfect travel size box game where you're going to be playing kind of the captain or people on this spaceship that's taken this risk and gone into the red zone of the sun, but the risk didn't pay off, and what's happened is the sun has effectively knocked out the engine core within the spaceship. So you and your crewmates are going to go around these kind of 9-room areas trying to divert all the power from these rooms to the engine core so that you can then literally hot-foot it out of the grasp of the sun. If you don't do this, you will die. And that, in a nutshell, is Solar Storm. That's kind of the basis behind the game. Now, if you look on the back of the box, it gives you kind of the indicative layout there and what happens. And you can see that it's a kind of a 9-card based game. At its core, there are other cards involved, like resource cards and protection cards, etc. And you're going to run from room to room, trying to repair rooms and divert the power so that you can get the ship out of the way. Look, probably the best way to actually have a look at how the game plays and see whether the game is for you is for me to actually show you how the game plays. So let's have a look at Solar Storm by Ayden, Lowther and Dranda Games. Setting up Solar Storm is an absolute breeze. In fact, learning to play the game is a breeze as well. Because the reason being is, first of all, the rulebook is not overly complicated. It's only some kind of 23 pages long, but within that, maybe only the first kind of 14 pages are actual rules. The rest is just giving you a bit more flavour and telling you what the rooms do. So the first thing you're going to do is, as I say, at its heart, the kind of playing area is a 9-card game. The first thing you're going to do is, in the centre of your playing areas will always be your energy core. Then you're going to shuffle the other 8 room cards and lay them out randomly around the energy core. That means that each and every game that you play, there's going to be a slightly different feel to it. Excuse me. You're also going to place 3 of these orange cubes on every room other than the energy core. And you can see there, this is this area here. So there are 2 sets of icons on each room. These need to be fully covered by orange cubes before you can actually then give resources, which will then allow you to put a divert power token on there, and means that one of the rooms is diverting power. As I mentioned earlier, the aim of the game, excuse me, is to divert power from all 8 rooms into the energy core. And I'll talk about the resources in a second. So what's going to happen is, progressively throughout the games, is these kind of areas are going to be, these orange cubes are going to be removed from various cards, and your players and your crew are going to have to move around the board collecting resources and giving the right kind of resources so that you can effectively kind of repair the rooms back up to full strength, then pay even more resources as long as that's at full strength so you can divert the power. Once power has been successfully diverted in all 8 rooms, then that means that you can then travel to the energy core and activate the energy core and save the ship. But, you know, if you played anything like Pandemic, or you played, I don't know, Days of Ire by David Turchi, then you know that, you know, these kind of games, these kind of panic and stress and threat management games, nothing is ever that straightforward. You're collecting resources, and all the time you're collecting resources, you know, rooms are coming up for repair, and then, you know, so you may be repairing a room, but then you need also the resources to actually pay to get the divert power token in there as well. Now let's talk about the resources. So resources effectively come in 5 ways. They are metal, they are nanobots, they are energy, there's beautiful artwork on these cards, data, and then universal. And obviously universal can account for any. Depending on the difficulty of the game that you've got, there are only so many universal cards. You'll reduce the number of universal cards you'll put in your resource deck as well. So when you start the game, what's going to happen is you're going to get your resource deck and you're going to put 2 resources there. Sorry, you're going to pull 2 resources out and put them face up there. Then as you progress through the game, you're going to draw more and more resources. If you ever get to the end of that resource deck and you haven't completed the task here and diverted power, then that's one of the ways that you can absolutely lose the game. You're also, depending on how many players you've got, going to deliver 4 resource cards, well, a number of resource cards to each player. So in a 2-player game, and bear in mind that this is co-op and soloable as well. So in a 2-player game, so I'm playing 2-player co-op here, you'll deal 4 resources to each player. And look at that, that particular player has got 3 nanobots and 1 data, whereas over here we've got kind of 2 data, 1 energy and 1 metal. Now, the other thing you do when you start the game is this is your damage deck. And what this does is this dictates which rooms throughout the game are going to have cubes taken off them. And it starts off and each damage card is going to only have 1 on there. But then as you get through the deck, you're going to start having 2 on there. And as you get to the back of the deck, you're going to have 3 on there. So the longer that you play the game, the longer it takes, the more areas are going to get damaged. And what happens is, when you first start the game, is you're going to take the bottom 2 damage cards, which will both be 3 damage cards, and we're going to remove cubes from these areas. So we're going to remove a cube from the medical bay on this top card. We're going to remove 1 from the cargo hold, and we're going to remove 1 from the mess hall as well. I'll just find that. I haven't got my glasses on. There we go. And then on the second card, we're going to remove 1 from the bridge. We're going to remove 1 from the repair centre, which is there. And we're going to remove 1 from crew quarters as well. So you can see how that works. That's how you start the game. Then as we progress through the game, obviously, the first damage card we draw out is going to be a single room. But I've already got rooms now that aren't to full strength. And that is how the game is going to progress. You're going to move around the board, you're going to draw damage cards, you're going to try to see which rooms are going to get damaged, and you're going to try and find the resources to absolutely kind of move around this play mat and this play area, repairing all these rooms and diverting the power until you've diverted the power from 8 rooms and you can get to the energy core. So we've all seen this type of game quite a few times, this kind of threat management, cubes on a board type of game where you're rushing from one place to another as the threat starts to increase or as the danger level starts to increase, trying to keep on top of it to reach a common objective. So yeah, you played a similar type of game, but I think what Solar Storm does particularly well is it takes that gameplay and condenses it down into a very small, kind of almost small footprint format, certainly into a small box game. It gets rid of a lot of extraneous fluff and just concentrates on the core mechanics. And those core mechanics are going to be led by the actions that your particular characters can take. Now each round is going to take place in a number of phases. The first phase is kind of where your character and your crew will take 3 actions. Then you're going to move into the resource phase where you will start to collect some resources. Now resources are good because you need resources to repair the rooms. You need resources to get your divert power token so you can divert power in all the rooms. But of course, the more resources you use, the faster you go through that pack, and the faster you go through that pack, that is a losing condition. And then the final phase is damage the ship. So you're going to take 3 actions, you're going to take resources, and then you're going to draw one of these damage cards, as I say, which is then going to effectively tell you which room you are going to then take a cube away from. So I think probably the easiest thing to do is for me to show you just maybe 1 or 2 rounds of how this plays and how easy it is to play Solar Storm. So here we are. We've set the board up. I've set the damage up. You know which rooms are damaged effectively on the board. I've taken the cubes off for there, and we've given our players each player 4 starting resources. So we're going to move into kind of the 3 actions, and as you can see, they are move, repair a room, activate a room, divert power, scavenge, share resources, or a save action. You can save one of your actions to then potentially have 3 actions the next go. So this is the blue player. He's got 3 nanobots and 1 data. You can repeat any of these actions as many times as you want as well. So if we look around the board, we do know that this room here, the bridge, had a damage cube taken off it. Now to repair the bridge, what I could do is move into that room, which would be 1 action, then use one of my nanobot cards, which would then go into the resource discard pile, and that would repair the room. And then if I had these three resources down here, so if I had data and I had metal and I had energy, I could then, whilst this is fully repaired, divert the power. So let's find out what we need to do then. So my first move is, my first action is it's going to be a move. That's one done, and I moved into this room. Now each room has these room actions you can take at the bottom there, and that says look at the next 3 damage cards and put them back in any order, which is great, but you can only carry those out if the room is fully repaired. And of course this isn't fully repaired because we know there's a damage cube missing. So action number 1 moved into there. Action number 2, I'm going to discard one of my nanobot cards and I'm going to put a repair cube back on there. And that is now at full strength. So that means if I had the relevant resources and I had enough moves, I could then divert power in that room, or I could take an action here and look at the next 3 damage cards. Unfortunately, I don't have these resources here. In fact, in my hand, I've only got the data. If I look over in the resource pile here, there are actually 2 cards which would allow me on my next turn to do that. Now, I could then take a scavenge action. And what scavenge action does is it allows you to take 1 or 2 cards depending on the roll of a die. And there we go, we have a lovely green die here. So I think I'm going to try the scavenge action. I'm hoping for a 6. If I get a 6, I can add those 2 to my hand and maybe divert power next go. So let's have a look at that one. Oh, it's a 4 I got. That means I can only take 1 of those. And what I'm going to do is I will take the energy, and as soon as you take it from there, you then replace it back into the pile there. So that's my 3 actions done for my blue player. Then what we do is we flip around to the other side, and the next thing is I can take 1 resource from a face-up card or 2 resources from the resource deck. So what I could do is take 1 of these cards, and I know I literally only need metal next time to divert power on that room, or I could take 2 blind cards. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take that metal card, put it into my hand, and replace that straight away. And there's 2 nanobots on there. Now your hand can never be more than 6 cards. If it's more than 6 cards, you have to knock it back down to 6 cards, or discard to 6 cards. So that's my 3 actions done. That's my phase 2 done, which was take resources. And the final phase is damage the ship. So this is where you take a damage card. And here we see, it says here repair center. So what I do is I look for the repair center, which is here, which has already got a cube removed, and we're going to remove that cube. So that's starting to get to critical position now. So don't get somebody there soon. What's going to happen is there's a good chance you could lose that cube when all 3 cubes have been removed from any one room, and it takes 1 more damage. That's game over, man. That's game over. So that's my blue player gone. That's not bad. We've moved, we've repaired, we've got the relevant kind of resource cards that we need. It's now on to the yellow player. And again, we're going to follow the kind of 3 actions there. So what can we do for the yellow player? Well, let's see. For the yellow player, is there any... Yes. So here we go. He needs a nanobot there. And he needs that up there. Okay, fine. So what we're going to do for the yellow player is we are going to take his first action as a move, and we are going to move down into the armory. So that is move number 1. Now I have a number of options available for me. I could absolutely take the action on the room, which would be to place 2 protection tokens on any room. So if I was to place 2 protection tokens in any room, I would take these tokens, which have like a shield on them. And what I could do is, if there's a room that's in danger of potentially losing or having too much damage taken off it, I can place a protection token on that room. That means if I was to then draw a damage card in my next turn, then that protection token would stop that damage being taken from there, but they only last 1 round. So that's one of the options I can take on this room. The other option is I can potentially, if I had the right stuff or the right resources, I could pay those resources out and I could divert power from that room. But unfortunately, as you can see, this requires a metal, it requires an energy, and it requires a nanobot. And I've got a metal and an energy, but I have 2 data. If I was in the same room as the other guy, I could trade stuff with him, but I'm not. I'm down here. But over here in my resources, there are 2 nanobots. So again, what I'm going to try and do for my second move is I'm going to try and collect those resources. So let's have a look. Oh, now that's come back as a 1. And there we go. On my scavenge action, a 1 actually gets me nothing. So that's 2 of my 3 moves gone. Now what I could do now is say, you know what, I'm just going to stay here and stay safe and take one of those 2 nanobots when I collect resources next. And if I do that, I would effectively save an action for next time. So I think that's what I'm going to do. Is I am going to, that's my 2 moves gone, saved an action for next time. We flip it over to phase 2. And phase 2 says take 1 face up card or 2 face down cards from the resource deck. What I'm going to do is I'm going to take this nanobot card. And I know next time, as long as no cubes are moved from here, I can absolutely divert power on my next go. So I'll then replace that. And then the final phase is, of course, damage the ship. And here we go. It says here that the bridge needs to have a damage cube taken away from it. And there we go. That's on the bridge. I've literally just repaired that as my blue player, and it's already in place now where it can't, where it's already been damaged. And that's how the game plays. You can see you've got this progressive threat coming down on you all the time. So that's that player, yellow player done there. Let's move back to the blue player because I think we can actually divert power here. So we got 3 actions. The first action I need to do before I can divert power is I need to repair this room. I have a nanobot card. That's the cube that's available there, that's showing there. So I can put that cube on and that room is now repaired. And now to actually divert power in that room, I have to provide a data, a metal and a energy resource. And what do I have in my hand? I have data, metal and energy. Now what you must do when you are diverting power is you must have all 3 resources available to you. You cannot kind of put 2 down and wait for the next turn. So if you haven't got all 3 resources, you cannot divert power from that room. So there we go, that's my second go, and I've diverted power there. And now I still have 1 turn left. I've got this room down here, which means which needs obviously an energy and a steel to protect it. So I think what I'm going to do is, to repair it, I'm going to move my blue player down there. That's his 3 actions gone. We flip over to phase 2. And now I'm going to take resources. So I could take 1 resource from the pack here or 2 resources from face down. Now you have to build the resources up from the bottom up basically. So I need a green resource here. There's none in the pack. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a bit of a blinder and take 2 face down resources. And we have, we have a data and a universal, and that means that I can then on my next go repair this using the universal because I don't have an energy resource, but I do have a universal resource. Finally, on his go, we're going to damage the ship, and there we go, that's the cargo hold. So let's have a look for the cargo hold. That is also down to 1 cube. Wow, okay. So I think that gives you a really good gist of how this game plays. And that is how the game is going to progress over a period of maybe 20 or 30 minutes. You are going to move frantically around the kind of player area, trying to keep on top of the threats, repair rooms and have enough resources and collect enough resources so you can divert power from those 8 rooms, which will then allow you to get into the final energy core tile and activate that and save the ship. Look, there's only one way to win the game, and that is to do exactly that. Divert power from all 8 rooms and then activate the ship. You can lose the game by your rooms collecting too much damage. So therefore, if all 3 energy cubes have gone and you haven't repaired them, and then it's 1 room sustains 1 more damage, or that room sustains 1 more damage, that's it, that's game over. You can also lose the game by depleting your resource deck. And you think, there's enough. There seems to be loads of resources there, so surely that's enough to keep the game going. Well, let me tell you, I played the game co-op, and solo, true solo, a number of times, and I've only won the game once, and that was in true solo, one of the true solo games. And at that point, I had 2 resource cards left in the deck, so I was very close to actually losing the game. It's a tightly crafted game. It does not outstay its welcome. And I think, you know, as I mentioned before, it kind of strips away a lot of the extraneous stuff that some of these types of games have. Now, there is also a true solo mode. So with it being co-op, you can play any number from 1 to any number from 2 to 4 players as you move around the board. As a solo player, you could do that. Of course, you can play with others. But there is a true solo mode, and what happens there is you will effectively be one player controlling 3 other crew members around the board, and you have a shared hand of resources. So there aren't kind of 4 multiple hands of resources. You have a shared hand of resources, and that's quite an interesting dynamic as well, the true solo mode. But because it's a co-op game, you can play the standard game as a solo player as co-op, and I've played it both ways, and to tell you the truth, they both offer a slightly different challenge. Okay, so on to final thoughts on Solar by Ayden, Lowther and Dranda Games. Look, I sometimes have a bit of a problem with small box games in that what's providing sometimes a decent experience is the amount of replayability you get out of them can sometimes be, I don't know, I find that it's lacking a little bit. Don't get me wrong, there are some great small box games. I love Deep Space D6, I love Maquis, but I have played and invested in other small box games where after a few goes, the sheen has just worn off for me and I don't really enjoy that experience. However, I will say that I have played Solar Storm since I got the review copy a significant number of times, and I will probably still play it. And one of the things I really like about it is the relatively small footprint. It's not quite small enough to fit on a train kind of a train table, you know, a single train table. Obviously, a big one it is, but it is portable enough to take to hotels, take on holiday, that kind of thing, and it will provide 20 or 30 minutes of challenge that are, you know, a good kind of that's not immersive gameplay, a good puzzle to play. I think, you know, bearing in mind that it is a relatively inexpensive game, anywhere between £15 and £20 to buy the retail version, the quality of the components is absolutely spot on for the price that you're paying. You know, there could have been other things done with it potentially, but that would have increased the price and not increased the experience. So I think what Ayden's done here is get that balance absolutely right in terms of, you know, the artwork is good and it's striking, and certainly on the resource cards it's nice and bold, so you're not mistaking resources for other things. So yeah, they struck that balance between pricing it right and kind of getting the design of the game right. I'm liking the mechanics in this. I like the puzzle of moving around the board and the threat happening, or the threat increasing. And I like the varying degrees of difficulty, and those degrees are generally monitored by how many of the universal resource cards that you put in your deck. I say I played it co-op 2 players, I played it true solo. The experience, whilst being different enough, is still pretty much a similar experience. I think as time progresses with Solar Storm, one of the things may be, is it solvable? Ultimately, there are only 8 room cards that you can get, and 8 configurations of, and the configurations thereof, 8 room cards that will move around the energy core. I know there's a couple of small kind of Kickstarter expansions that Ayden included as well, which give you some alternate rooms on there. And of course, it's driven by the damage as well, which does allow you to have some variability. But I don't know whether it's solvable. Will I play it enough to know that? Who knows? In the meantime, I'm having an absolute blast with it. You know, so for me, for the price point of kind of 15-20 quid, for the amount of instant and easy to learn gameplay that you get out of the box, I think it's an absolutely cracking purchase. I'm really impressed with, as I say, the kind of the quality of the components for the price point, the amount of playability, the link to the theme. And you know, the theme is, you know, it's kind of a threat management game, so the theme is always going to be there's an impending doom happening, but it works quite nicely. You've got these orange cubes which kind of signify sci-fi, the the solar aspect on there. The cards are all kind of geared towards it. I like it. I think it absolutely works as a 15 to 20 pound game that you're going to play multiple times. That has this increasing kind of threat mechanic happening. I think it's an essential purchase. I'm really, really pleased that I got the opportunity to kind of review this game. So for me, Solar Storm by Ayden Lowther and Dranda Games, it's a stone cold recommendation because there are far worse things that you can do with 15 quid of your money. And that's it, guys. Thank you very much for joining me on Not Board Gaming for this review of Solar Storm by Ayden Lowther and Dranda Games. Look, I genuinely like this game. It's not a deep and immersive game. You're not going to be playing this game for hours and hours on end. It is exactly what it claims to be. It's a small box kind of threat management experience, hand management, threat management, call it what you want, that offers enough kind of playability and replayability to be a game that you really kind of just, when you got spare 20 or 30 minutes, you want to set it up, you want to play it, you want to see how you work out the puzzle. So highly recommended from me. So thank you very much for joining me on Not Board Gaming. I'm Mark, I'm your host. Please remember you can follow us on Facebook or on Instagram, and that's always Not Board Gaming, always BORED. Do check out our other videos and like and subscribe to the channel as well. And in the meantime, one final thought. If you can't find anybody else to play with, there's nothing wrong with playing with yourselves.